that DNA raises, the question of information.
Sure.
All right. This is Steve Meyer in your book, Signature in the Cell. Quote, DNA sequences do not just possess information in the strictly mathematical sense, developed by the famed MIT scientist Claude Shannon in the late 1940s. Instead, DNA sequences convey instructions. They perform functions, they possess specified information. Okay, so you've got, as far as I can tell, it's really important to understand this, but you're gonna have to help me do that.
Sure.
So we start with Shannon information,
Right.
and as I understand it, Shannon is working on telecommunications. He's trying to come up with mathematical algorithms that let you convey lots of phone calls down a
Communication channel.
communication channel, right? And he has this basic insight that the information an event conveys is inversely proportional to the event's probability. So, the sun comes up this morning, it tells us nothing new. That's a very probable event. The sun doesn't come up, and we know it is conveying information about some new event in the world. Is that roughly correct?
Roughly, it might be.
You're not happy with that.
Maybe coins or dice might be better
Go ahead,
ways
go ahead.
of getting at it. So if the basic idea of Shannon information is that information is related to the reduction of uncertainty. That's the intuition. So if I flip a coin and it's got two sides and it comes up heads, now I've reduced a certain amount of, a quantifiable amount of uncertainty. It was either going to be a head or a tail, and now it's a head. But if I roll a die, there are 6 possible outcomes, and so the amount of uncertainty reduced when it comes up 3 rather than 1, 2, 4, 5, or 6 is greater than the amount of uncertainty reduced by flipping the coin. And so you can see that the information measure, the amount of uncertainty reduced, is related to the probability of the event taking place. The head has a 1 in 2 chance, the die, one side of the die, a 1 in 6 chance. So there's more uncertainty with the more improbable event. More uncertainty reduced when the more improbable event occurs. And so what Shannon does is he's able to quantify the amount of information carrying capacity in a string or bit string. But what he can't do, and which he was very explicit about saying, is that his mathematical measure of information carrying capacity doesn't tell you whether the string, the series of characters, is meaningful or functional or specified to perform a function in any way. So a very simple example that conveys the difference is you might think of, if you type at random 20 characters on your typewriter keyboard and put that string out, and then right below it you might write a line of poetry, time and tide, wait for no man. Both strings have identical amounts of Shannon information because they're using the same alpha character symbol system, but one has a qualitative element that the other doesn't have. They're both equally improbable, but one has a qualitative element, and that is that the arrangement of the characters is specific to perform a communication function. And that's the kind of information
that we see. Go ahead.
Well, it's the kind of information that invariably indicates a designing intelligence. If you see a line of poetry that's meaningful, you right away know there was a poet. But if you just see random characters like that, it might be that somebody arranged them for that in that way, but it's also could be the product of monkeys at the keyboard. So so early on in the 1950s, we have Crick with his sequence hypothesis. He's working in the immediate wake of the Shannon information revolution, and he specifies that DNA does not have mere Shannon information. He says that the sequence of bases in DNA are sequenced specifically to perform a function. And so that you have what an origin of life researcher named Leslie Orgel coined this term specified complexity. Complexity is a synonym for improbability, and so you have a specified improbable arrangement. When you have that, that's what we mean in ordinary parlance by information, or in our careful writing on the origin of life problem, we define what needs to be explained as the origin not of Shannon information, but of specified information or specified complexity. Something like tide and tide wait for no man, as opposed to the random characters of the monkey would type out.
Certainly scientists are seeing this, but they're not speaking up. They're not speaking up because they're afraid to, but they're seeing the barriers that are there, and there is no solution. The only ones that are not speaking up are the ones that are making their living from this thing. But nobody wants to speak up and get this abuse. My hope is that as young people come into this, these organizations will begin to change. That's my hope, that people will begin to be more open-minded here.
Okay. There was a major article in Nature just a month or so ago, Jim, right, by two authors that are leading origin of life researchers, Johanna Xavier and Nick Lane. And they, Johanna had previously actually commended both Jim and me for raising these serious problems. And then she went on with Nick to write an article in Nature saying, hey, we can't keep sweeping this stuff under the rug. And so I think there is a shift starting. I think a lot of origin of life researchers are pretty terrified of Jim Tour because he knows the chemistry as well or better than they do. And he's saying, he's performing this chemical accounting and saying that these experiments are not plausible. They're not getting results that are plausible. They're not consistent with what we know about what would have been happening on the early Earth. We need another approach.